Welcome back to Expand the Visual. I'm Jordan Taylor, and I'm the author of How to Wash Your Brain and the new book Total Attention Magic, which helps ADHD kids and their parents live a better life, because I have ADHD myself. But I'm not really here to talk about those books right now. Instead, I just want to talk to you like if we were sitting down and we were having coffee, because if you were my good buddy and we were sitting down, I would probably tell you about the latest experiences and the thoughts that were on my mind. So if we were having coffee, I would want to tell you about something that just happened to me recently. So I was with my daughter and we were walking through the streets of Athens, and we saw this really old church. And I thought, oh my God, it's the pandemic. We probably can't go inside that church. By the way, by really old, I mean like well over 1,000 years old. This is this Byzantine Church, real small. And so we tried, let's see, it's during the pandemic, but can we get in? So we put our masks on, and my daughter and I walk in, and sure enough, we were able to just go in and stay as long as we want and have a look. And so I'm sitting there looking around and just trying to, I mean, it takes time to put yourself in the shoes of somebody living 1,000 years ago. And so I sat there and I thought, and just was silent and looked around. And I noticed that, like a lot of older churches, every surface, like the inside of the domes and the arches and the walls, have scenes from the Bible, like almost like comic book panels, only a much different style of artwork. Although that would be kind of cool if you had a modern church with the exact same design, but you did comic style art. Sam Richardson, maybe you can get on that. But I thought to myself, how would I explain this to my daughter? What would I say, like why they have these different Bible scenes? And I was asking her, hey, do you recognize any scenes? And she's like, yeah, I think I recognize that scene, I recognize that scene. And it kind of dawned on me that like 1,000 years ago, a lot of people, A, they probably didn't read, and B, they probably didn't even have access to a written copy of the Bible, because this is pre-printing press. You know, a book was it wasn't a commodity, it was something rare, right? A piece of art that was hard to get a hold of. So if you wanted to educate people about the Bible, would you go distribute a bunch of copies of the Bible? No, not 1,000 years ago. Instead, you would want to take these illiterate people and bring them into a space where the space itself educated them about the stories of the Bible. So it's almost like the building is a Bible. And then it dawned on me that like the way it's depicted, that's what would become the version of that story to those people. So think about the tremendous impact that the artist would have. The way they decided to depict that particular scene, that becomes how that scene went down in the minds of, I don't know if it was hundreds of people or thousands of people, but that's like an imprint on their mind of the way the world is and the way the metaphysical world is. And then I had kind of like a burst of lightning insight about the responsibility that our modern artists have on the way that people nowadays in 2022 see the world and the metaphysical world. Because we have things like video games, social media, and the Hollywood industry, super important. And it's those stories and those images that are populating the minds of modern people, and that's how they make sense of the world. So if you see a few different popular movies, that becomes a part of the psychology of how modern people understand the world. And I like to call this movie psychology, because people think that they're rational beings, but they're not really. What you have is a database of information in your head, stuff that you've seen. So you've seen stuff in the real world, you've also seen stuff in the online world and the movie world, and it's just everything you've seen kind of gets synthesized into your cartoon version of what the real world is like. Nobody knows what the real world is like. There's too much of it. All right? That's why this channel is called Expand the Visual. The more you expand your visual, the more you bring in sources of information, the fuller picture of the world you really have. But most people are running around on movie psychology. That's why they think, oh, they can just, if they get in a fight, they'll knock somebody out, right? Or if somebody pulls a gun on them, they'll take it out of their hand. People think that that kind of stuff is real, that that's the way it's really going to work. Or my favorite one, I think this is a huge problem, is people my age were raised on movies that a lot of time had a montage, where you would have a character that was in one set of circumstances, and then they would go through this montage, and now they're a totally different person. And so I think people expect results too quickly, because they think, hey, the picture of how someone changes in their head, it's movie psychology. You think it happens by a montage. So you think it's going to be an 8-week challenge, or it's going to be a 6-month course or something like that, and you're going to be this different person. Yeah, you'll change, but life ain't a montage. Life is very long, and life takes consistency over a long period of time to get where you want to go. So I guess to wrap up, that whole thing was, the artists have a responsibility about how they depict things, because the way they depict things becomes our psychology. Just like those Bible stories became the Bible in the mind of the people who were in that church. People who are putting stuff out online and in movies, they're the new artists. They're constructing the reality of the church of the world. So watch out for movie psychology. Don't let it trick you too much. And if it does trick you too much, just like it tricks me, just evaluate the sources that you're bringing in. And always remember that it's better to expand the visual.